Are your legs holding you back from living longer? Recently, there has been a lot of discussion about the fact that strong legs are correlated with longevity, with claims stating that the stronger your legs are, the higher the chance you're going to live a lot longer. Now, I decided to look at what the fuss was all about with strength of legs and longevity, and I also decided to look at the studies and some of the information out there and decide whether I should focus on strengthening my legs, considering I have chicken legs, partly due to genetics, but also whether it is something that you should be focusing on if you wanted to live a lot longer. Now, the first study that I came across was one that was done on identical twins by Professor Claire Steeves. And here she studied the strength and power in one of the twins to decide whether it made a difference in the longevity of the health of both twins. And what she did find was the fact that the twin that had stronger legs and also more power had increased cognition and mental capacity versus the other twin that wasn't as focused on their leg strength. Now, considering their genetic makeup is the same, this is quite profound because it essentially shows that the stronger your legs are, the higher chance you're going to have better mental cognition and as well as the ability to have less age-related disease and live longer. In her study, they had 320 identical twins and they looked at it over a period of about 10 years. So this is quite important because it essentially shows that if you had great leg strength, then you can always tick that box of mental capacity and cognition being a very important part of getting older. Dr. Vonda Wright, who's an orthopedic surgeon, and she has worked with thousands of patients with lower limb impediments, including hip and knee issues, and she's also an advocate for healthy aging. And what she found was that by having stronger lower limbs, it actually improved your chances of living and health and also survival because of the fact that most people, especially when they age, had a higher chance of falling down and also they had reduced mobility. And what was found was that if you focus on that area from your waist down, then the chances are you'd be moving a lot better. Your ability to get up while you're sitting or when you're on the ground will also improve. And this would mean that if you were driving, you'll be able to get in and out of the car. Now, these are things that many people don't think about because essentially most people don't think about what's going to happen when they get older. But this is a very common thing that happens, especially when you get older and your joints get stiff and you find it difficult because of posture and balance issues as well. Dr. Courtney Connolly from Gait Happens, she speaks a lot about how the commonest injury that occurs as a result of poor lower limb strength often falls, especially in the elderly. And she's a big proponent about the fact that the strength of our muscles in our feet, in our toes, our ankles, and our lower limb can contribute to the fact that our balance is off as well as the posture as we get a lot older. And there are often signals between your legs and your ankles, your feet sent back to your brain. And personally, I believe that physiologically this reduces as we age, but also the fact that we're not actually activating and using these muscles like we used to when we were children or even teenagers doing cartwheels or even jumping around in different positions, that as we get older, we just tend to not use those muscles as much because we're spending a lot of time lying down or sitting down. Now, if you did have a chronic disease such as heart disease, maybe diabetes or even arthritis, there's a higher chance that your mobility reduces and essentially leading to the fact that you have lower limb strength and having a reduction in longevity. Now, it's pretty obvious if you had a chronic disease, the chances of your longevity being reduced is out there, but we still need more studies to show us whether the fact that the chronic disease is leading to lower limb strength, which is then leading to reduction in longevity. So what do we know? That there is a correlation between poor lower limb strength, the fact that your brain cognition and function reduces, as well as the fact that you're going to have a lot more falls and reduce the chances that you're going to be able to care for yourself as you age is sort of an impediment for you to live a lot longer. When I look at what is in front of me, it makes perfect sense. If we looked at it from a higher level, being fit and healthy and the ability to move freely with great upper strength and great lower limb strength would definitely lead to the fact that you're going to live a lot longer. But what tends to happen is that when our lower limb strength is affected, and that then affects our mobility, then the chances of having falls and other complications as a result can increase. And this is what happens, especially in the elderly, when they have falls and they fracture their hips, that within the first year, they have a 25% chance of actually dying as a result of complications from that fall. So reduction in mobility as a result of poor lower limb strength will definitely reduce the chances of you living a very nice and long life. Now, I recently had a 90-year-old patient who was super fit and healthy, and he was walking tall and strong. Oftentimes, when I come across patients that anywhere between 85 all the way up to 100, I'll always ask them the same question, which is, what is their secret to living this long? And he's actually just looked at me and just said that I just keep moving and I don't let my mind tell me otherwise. He went on to say that he exercises frequently and he's involved in different communities, which he assists people in those communities as well as gets support, which I've spoken about in my past episodes, whereby that is a very important part of living a good, healthy life, having that community. Now, it clearly isn't purely just lower limb strength when it comes to this 90-year-old patient, but there are multiple other factors in play when it comes to longevity. Personally, based on the information that I've read and seen, these are some of my observations on why leg strength is such a factor. Firstly, it is no secret that most people don't enjoy working out their legs. Now, they have memes out there where they talk about missing leg days for a reason, because it's easier to work your upper body and have strong arms, shoulders, and a chest, almost look like a peacock, looking strong and tall. And when people look at you, that's the first thing they see. For that same reason, a lot of people actually miss working out their legs and strengthening their legs. With that being said, it's worth noting that most of your muscle mass actually is in your lower part of your body, in your thighs, in your legs, in your calves. And this is where you generate a lot of power from, especially when you do activities like jumping or running. And so it's all coming from your lower part of your body. It's also worth noting that your calf muscle is also known as the second heart because it pumps an enormous amount of blood from your lower limbs back up to your heart. And so for that reason, I really believe that from the beginning, people are actually avoiding exercises to strengthen their legs. And as a result, this may affect them as they get older. The next would be lifestyle factors. For many individuals, they spend a lot of time sitting down. And when you sit for long periods of time, you're going to end up with stiffness, especially in your hip flexors, in your glutes, and even in your hamstrings. I've seen many patients over my career go from having absolutely active lifestyle to then not mobilizing much or even exercising as a result of busy professional lives, and then having issues with their lower back, with mobility issues after that, and their lower limb strength then taking a hit. I mean, I've seen it in myself as well. And the difficult or challenging part is once you start losing the ability to utilize those muscles, it becomes even harder for you to actually get disciplined enough to get back into it. As the saying goes, if you don't use them, you lose them. And this is very true when it comes to lower limb strength as well. Then we have lack of movement. If you have an issue that is causing you not to move as much, whether it be your back, your lower limbs, or even your hip, that is giving you problems, then slowly this can then deteriorate your mobility, and eventually your lower limb strength is going to reduce. I've seen many patients who have been super fit and have now put on a tremendous amount of weight as a result of the fact that they're not able to move like they used to because of the fact that they may have chronic pain issues stemming from their back, their hips, and even their ankles and even feet sometimes. And that for that reason, if you're not actually moving, your lower limb strength is going to reduce. And eventually it's almost like a snowball effect. When one thing starts, by the time it ends, it's just got really big. And now it's becoming even more challenging to get moving once again. And finally, we have cognitive influence. As I mentioned earlier about my 90-year-old patient, as much as he was physically fit and moving around and part of a community, he also did mention that he never let his mind tell him that he can't do something. What I've seen over my career is that many people, due to potentially the society and what we actually take in about how old we are and what we should be doing, then start behaving based on our age. So that if you were in your 70s and your 80s, you may tell yourself that you can't do these exercises or you shouldn't be doing those activities because it's a young person's game. And I've heard this so often that it almost becomes indoctrinated into my mind by the fact that these are the limitations of what I shouldn't be doing. Now, in no way am I saying that you need to go out there and push yourself hard or do weights that you've never done before, but I think that inner dialogue or that conversation you have with yourself based on the information you get outside shouldn't be a factor why you're not actually exercising, or shouldn't be a factor why you're actually not moving and doing the things that you enjoy. We do know as well that the more you actually move, this can actually help your cognitive function as well. Now, the way I look at it is our bodies are like factories or a machine, no matter what you like to look at it. I feel like as long as you keep lubricating it and keep it going, you'll generally just be in a better state. When you're moving, you're getting blood flow through your lower limbs back up to your heart, back to your brain. And generally that's a good thing because it gets rid of toxins and it brings in a lot of oxygen into your cells and the cells that need it. And as long as you can keep oiling that machine, you're going to have a better chance of living a lot longer. Based on all this information, the last question I would have is that, has this changed my idea about whether I need to be doing more squats or hip thrusters based on the fact that lower limb strength equals a longer life? The reality is the answer is no, it doesn't change anything, because based on this information, we already knew that if you actually took care of your health and you were doing all the basics such as eating well, hydrating well, moving well, sleeping well, and potentially reducing any stresses in your life, then the chances are you're going to live a nice and long life. But as I've mentioned in all my other episodes, most people want the quick fix and most people want a secret hack that's going to make a huge difference. But keeping to the basics and really just focusing on the foundation is probably what everyone needs to do, rather than jumping on the next trend that comes out. So does lower limb strength actually matter when it comes to longevity? 100%. But does your overall health, based on the fact that you have nice, strong muscles in your lower limb and potentially even in your upper limb, does this become a contributor to you living a lot longer? I believe that is the answer. And I think that if you just focused on having a good and healthy lifestyle, then you're going to probably live a very long, happy, and fulfilled life. Now, if you've enjoyed this episode, take a listen to the next episode where I talk about what is VO2 max and whether you should be incorporating exercises to increase your VO2 max in order for you to get to your peak performance. This wraps up this episode of Peak Performance Hacks. All the links and resources are in the video description or in the resource section, whether it is on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube, please consider subscribing. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave us a review so that more people can discover our podcast and it could benefit them as well. Until I catch you next time, speak soon.